I think it's critical. I'm even studying so many of the approaches to company culture, organizational culture, and you think about the critical components that lead to a healthy culture. And when you kind of strip all of the things away, and yes, there are measurables and understanding what the expectations are of my job on a day-to-day basis, and me knowing what those are and understanding that. But really, when you get down to the core of it is, am I seen as a human being? And am I valued as a human
Mm.
being?
Hello and welcome to Love as a Business Strategy, a podcast that brings humanity back to the workplace. We're here to talk about business, but we want to tackle topics that most business leaders shy away from. And we always believe that humanity and love should be at the center of any successful business. My name is Jeff Ma, and I'm excited to have conversations and hear stories with real people and real businesses and learn how they operate. So my guest today is Ben Greene, who has spent over 20 years working in the nonprofit sector, and he's the current Chief Development Officer at Charity Water. And I'm super excited to have him here today to share his perspective with me. So welcome to the show, Ben. How are you?
Thanks so much. I am doing well. Thanks for having me on, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm super excited. We talk about anything and everything here, and it's been a while since I've had the opportunity to talk. I'm really interested in all nonprofit sector stuff, and especially Charity Water is very, very exciting to me. And when we talk about love as a business strategy, this is often there's so many different ways to translate that for people, like just
Mm,
at first glance. And so I want to dive into all that with you today. And so thank you for your time today already.
love it. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me.
Before we talk about all the great things, Charity Water, all those good things, I want to hear about you first. So Ben, what's your kind of path that brought you to where you are today?
Sure. From a career perspective, I graduated college in 2002, moved to Nashville immediately after I got married, right away after I graduated. And in my junior and senior year of college, I started getting interested in humanitarian relief and development. And didn't know much at all about it, but was just very interested, and moved to Nashville, Tennessee from Florida, and immediately found out that an organization called World Vision had an office here in Nashville, and I basically just begged them for a job. I said, I'll do anything. Just let me come and work for you. And had no idea that of course, as most of us in the fundraising space, didn't kind of set out and say, "Oh, I'm a fundraiser for my career," but it really started just with honestly wanting to help people in whatever
Mm.
way possible, and this seemed like a great conduit in order to do that. And so begged World Vision for a job. They probably very reluctantly hired me straight out of school, and I began kind of my journey in this fundraising space. My degree was in psychology, and so just kind of really understanding the connection and the human behavior behind giving and generosity, and what people respond to and how they give from emotion, and those things were very interesting to me. So it's been a pretty incredible path from starting in 2002 to today, being at Charity Water, but I've pretty much stayed for the majority of those 20 years in the humanitarian relief and development sector, always in the nonprofit sector, but for the most part, in the humanitarian relief sector as well. So that's kind of my path. I'm married, wife of almost 20 years. In June will be 20 years. Have a son that's 15 named Hutch, and a daughter named Haven that's 12. They'll be 16 and 13 this summer. So this summer is a big summer for the family. 20 years of
Mm-hmm.
marriage, 16-year-old, 13-year-old, all pretty milestone years. So yeah, that's the fam, and we're in Nashville, Tennessee, and just loving life.
I love it. Thanks for sharing all that. I love it. Congratulations on that 20 years of marriage and having two young kids of my own. That sounds quite the accomplishment to get that far with those kids as well, because I'm losing my mind here with my 6 and 4 year olds. So yeah.
It just gets better and
Um,
better.
Oh, I'm sure it does. They keep telling me that. No, it's great. Um, I guess to switch gears, I want to tell me a little bit, or tell the audience a little bit if they don't know about Charity Water. I mean,
Sure.
what is the mission? What's the purpose there?
Yeah. So, right now, as we sit here and talk in a world with cryptocurrency and launching people into space, there are still 771 million people on the planet that do not have access to clean water, to safe, reliable drinking water. That's 1 in 10 people on the planet that literally right now do not have a safe place to go to get water, drinking water. So, we want to change that. So 15 years ago, Charity Water was launched. Our founder's name is Scott Harrison. Scott set out to end the water crisis, end the global water crisis in our lifetime. And so that is our mission. And we are moving as fast and furious as possible to solve the global water crisis and to provide people with this basic necessity and an arguable good. And so we, 15 years in, we have now raised enough money to serve 15 million people with clean water, and we just want to keep going as fast as we possibly can. And the only thing really, prohibiting that speed and velocity is capital. To be honest, we know how to solve the problem. It's a completely solvable problem. And there are many different solutions to get there and solve that problem, but we know what they are, and we've learned a lot even in the first 15 years, and we know how to get it done. So that's our goal, is to bring clean water to people, to bring life and hope through this basic necessity of life.
I love it. And when it comes to love as a business strategy, this topic, this show, this topic, the book, any of those things, the question we always get asked are people who just from the title itself, they're like, what do you mean by love as a business strategy? And the two main kind of angles that get brought up typically, or assumed, would be the first being, oh, like, do you mean like doing loving things as a business,
Hmm.
or do you mean love like within the way you run the business? And if you listen to the show, you follow the show, or read the book, you'll see that a lot of our work is in the latter of what I just said, which is, how do you be a compassionate leader, an empathetic boss, if you will, somebody who builds teams that operate with love. But the reality is that all those things is what we mean by love as a business strategy. And when it comes to be honest, nonprofit and humanitarian work, all that stuff, a lot of people join those causes with a very noble mission, very noble heart. But the fact is that when you run business, you still end up having to do business, like no matter if it's nonprofit or not. And the way
Right.
humans do business sometimes lacks that love too. So I love marrying that conversation all together, because no doubt, Ben, you love what you do. I'd love to also talk about where else, I guess, love shows up for you. Like, what does love mean
Mm.
in your day to day, and in how
Yeah.
you work with others as well?
Yeah. It's interesting. By the way, I love no pun intended. I love that idea of love as a business strategy, but because I think it's critical. I'm even studying so many of the approaches to company culture, organizational culture, and you think about the critical components that lead to a healthy culture. And when you kind of strip all of the things away, and yes, there are measurables, and understanding what the expectations are of my job on a day-to-day basis, and me knowing what those are and understanding that. But really, when you get down to the core of it, is, am I seen as a human being, and am I valued as a human
Mm,
being?
true.
And can my manager, can my boss, whatever the term you use, my leader, understand that what I'm doing is contributing to the mission, and that they value me as a human being in that.
Yeah.
And and honestly, I try every single day to lead with empathy, and to try to figure out, how is it that I can best connect to the team, and value them, see them not just as kind of cogs in the wheel, and not just as people that are contributing to the work that needs to get done, but as human beings who also have lives that exist outside of 9 to 5 or 8 to 6 or whatever it might be on some days, but really valuing them as humans and seeing them as humans, and getting to know them. I think that's such a critical piece. It's interesting. I've had a few staff over the years that are a bit alarmed when I start a one-on-one and meeting, and I say, "How are you really doing? What's going on? What's going on? What are you into right now? What do you mean? Oh, I'm working on this. That no. At home, like, how are you doing? What's going on? And what are your interests right now? Have you watched a movie lately? Things like that." And it almost feels like, it's sometimes that can feel like a waste of time, but to me, it's just critical that we get to know our people that we're around every day, and in my world, it's the people that are making this important work happen. And so I don't know. That's kind of how I see it, and that's how I approach it. And hopefully, I do a halfway decent job of caring for those around me.
No, I love it. I selfishly asked this angle because I was wondering, I'll put you on the spot a little bit, but I'm wondering
Mhm.
if you can think of essentially examples in your workplace where that love that is either worked on or exists within the walls of Charity Water lead to benefits or outcomes that are part of the mission. So like can you
Sure.
because that's the theory, like that's the idea, is that, like, I've spoken to people with nonprofit or charitable kind of organizations, but within the walls it's like just all business, and everyone's there to to for this passionate want to help others,
Yeah.
but they're not seeing that part of that help needs to like start at home. It needs to start. They're not seeing the value of taking what you just said and like applying it, because they're so busy. Their heart is so full of wanting to help
Yeah.
others that they don't help themselves. And so I was
Yeah.
hoping to talk to those people directly, not just those, but everybody. So sorry, Ben, do you have anything um, kind of that exemplifies how that translates?
Yeah. I mean, I think, um, I don't know. I suppose you can be a big contributor and live an unhealthy life and be unhealthy as a person, but I think you can't be, um, the the greatest contributor that you can possibly be unless you are a healthy, you're living a healthy life and a balanced life. Um, and I think, how I've seen it play out in some of the walls within Charity Water, um, are, through empowerment, through trust, through looking at a staff person in the eyes who maybe is down on themselves and feeling like they can't do it, and you looking them in the eyes and saying, "I 100% believe you can," um, and um, and them accomplishing things that they maybe never even thought possible. Um, we have, staff now who, I think one of the things that Charity Water tries to do really well is to lean into, mental health and say, if you need time off, take time off. We can't accomplish our mission unless you can show up as your healthiest, the version of yourself, right? And so I think one of the things that we do really well, is creating a culture that, we work hard, we work fast. There's no doubt about it. We have a lot of goals. We have, aggressive goals, and we work very hard. But we also really work hard at valuing each other too. And I think when you look at just the overall, how it's played itself out within Charity Water, the overall success of the organization, we had our first $100 million year this past year,
Nice.
in annual revenue. And, I don't think that happens unless, within 15 years, an organization that's only 15 years old, $100 million in revenue in a nonprofit sector, it's a pretty big deal.
Hmm.
And I don't know that happens, unless you create a culture that values humans and helps them be the best versions of themselves.
Wow, awesome. It's exciting to me because there's it's like the utopia, I guess, for my line of work, of like being able to do something very mission and purposeful driven, like something that you really believe in, but also doing it alongside like-minded people who treat each other well. I mean, it's hard to ask for anything more in our lifetimes.
Yeah.
That right? I mean, we have to work, we have to survive, but that's the best way to do it. And I think that's just so exciting for you
Yeah.
and anyone in Charity Water who's getting that experience for sure. Love it.
Yeah. And we don't do it perfectly. We have, like anywhere else, we have room to grow. And I think especially in this remote culture, as
Mhm.
we've kind of moved from an office setting, and now we have staff in 23 states and 3 countries, and trying to kind of figure out what does this new um, season look like, and how do we maintain that kind of care for each other, and cultural sentiment that has helped fuel the organization for so long. We're learning with, I
Mhm.
think, with everyone else, and with the changes that have occurred in the last couple of years. But it's definitely at the forefront of leadership's mind.
Do you have like are you able to share anything internally in terms of like pillars or mantras or kind of mission statements that ring um, is true for kind of what we just talked about? Like, what are your guiding principles? I guess that
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean, we have core values, generosity and excellence. And I think for us, kind of, obviously integrity, the generosity piece, is such we apply a broad definition to it. And this is generous with time, generous with, obviously, our finances and other things, but we want to be people that live lives of generosity, for each other. And I think I see that played out over and over within Charity Water, of teammates that are willing to step into a project that might not necessarily be on their particular individual roadmap, but willing to kind of jump in and say, I'll help get this across the finish line. But I think for us, we have these core values, that we're all committed to live by, and live to. And you see it played out over and over again as we kind of keep those in the forefront um, of the organization, and our direction.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm curious when it comes to, like you mentioned, hard work for sure as well. And I'm sure you had $100 million a year, but you're still probably pushing and moving the bar higher and higher.
That's right.
What does that look like? I guess you know what what are the levers you guys are pulling to balance, pushing even harder and going, reaching new
Yeah.
heights, but also, maintaining, balance
Mm,
around workload, culture, and just empathy for each other. Like, how do you bring people along, I guess,
yeah.
with you on that journey?
Yeah, it's so difficult. I mean, honestly, to keep that balance. Ultimately, we kind of keep a north star in front of us, and our mission is to solve the global water crisis. Our our vision is to reinvent charity. So not only are we kind of in this constant uh, state of looking to the north star, which is our mission of the organization, but we're also kind of compelled to constantly figure out how do we do this differently. um, and so, I think for me, it's we're constantly assessing the roles that we've asked people to play, the amount of work that's on their plates, and how we're asking them to kind of play a part in this massive vision. If you're not careful in our world, because it truly is about life or death, we're bringing clean water to people that don't have accessible water. That can be a massive responsibility to bear.
Hmm.
And if you can kind of understand how your day-to-day work, even in the minutia, contributes to that overall mission, that overarching mission, it is a massive responsibility to think that something I do today could lead to clean water for somebody, very soon. And so how do we balance that responsibility with tackling this from a healthy mindset, a healthy standpoint.
Yeah.
And that is early on in my career, honestly, Jeff, if I, kind of think back, there were times where I was so overwhelmed by the need, by the sheer amount of need when I thought about it with a global lens, um, that I could work myself, to death. It's just one of those things where you just constantly pushing and constantly running because you feel like you're barely making a dent. When we think about an organization that raised $100 million last year, is providing clean water to 15 million people, and there's still 771 million people that don't have access to clean
Mm,
water.
yeah.
It's successful, but in perspective, it seems so small, like such a small dent in the overall picture. And so I think for us, it's just constantly balancing, what is next? Where are we going next? What is our goal for this next month? What is our goal for this next year?
Yep.
And moving toward that, but with passion. And yes, we'd love to see that multiplicative growth, but also kind of with the reality of keeping in mind everyone's workloads and lives.
Hmm.
And we have that responsibility, as leadership, um, we need to constantly be keeping that in mind, of the overall health of the organization. We have a great people and culture team, at Charity Water as well, that is consistently watching that as well and monitoring it.
Yeah. All that hard work is just a drop in the bucket, pun intended,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Sorry, terrible joke.
It's all right.
You probably get too many of those throughout the day.
Or a few water puns.
Um, can you share a few of the ways that you're trying to do charity different? I think you mentioned that you're trying to change
Yeah.
the charity game.
Yeah.
What are some of those things that you guys are looking at doing?
Sure. I think, one is from the very beginning, just how we approach charity to begin with. And that was, Scott, as he started to launch the organization, one of the things he realized firsthand was that there was a deep lack of trust in the nonprofit sector across the board. And so it was either we kind of try to climb uphill and fight that battle and that perception of distrust, or we just try to figure out ways that we can solve it from the beginning. So one of the things was he kind of took some arguments off the table. One of the things was, how much of my money is actually getting to the projects? How much of my money is actually getting to the field and fulfilling the mission of providing clean water to people? And so he created the 100% model, which Charity Water operates on. So the way it works is we have two bank accounts. We have one bank account that is public facing, and if you go to charitywater.org right now and you give a donation, and that credit card company charges us a 3% fee. Every bit of your donation, so the full amount, goes to provide clean water to people in need. We don't take any overhead out of the money that people donate to the organization at all.
Hmm.
We go to a small group of about 130 families that privately fund the well. So two separate bank accounts, one bank account that funds all of the overhead for the organization, the other bank account that funds all of the water projects around the world. And we don't ever take from one to put in the other. They live completely separate lives, and so we go to these 130 families. We raise all of the overhead funds. So no donor is ever worried about, am I paying for some executive's flights to get from one place to another? Am I paying for electricity bills in the office or anything like that? There's none of that. We completely separate those two. So 100% of public donations go to the projects in the field. So that was really, a pretty out of the box concept when Charity Water started 15 years ago.
So how does the organization stay running? Like, where does the money, I guess, come for the actual
Yeah.
operations?
So it's from that group of 130 families. We call them the well.
Oh, okay.
And so these 130 families literally know that all of the money that they're giving, that they contribute, goes to pay for the overhead of the organization. So they cover all of staff salaries, all of the travel, all of the anything that would be kind of put in that overhead bucket They
Got
cover
it.
all of those expenses. So that way we can go to the rest of the public and say anything that you give is going to go straight to the field.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Was that $100 million last year revenue? Was that in the public or combined, or was that where that
That
number?
was combined. That was
Got
combined.
it.
Yeah, we sent about a little over $80 million to the field, but the $100 million number was both the fundraising for the operations and the fundraising for the
Awesome.
water projects. Yeah.
That's great. Awesome. Um, Last little topic I'm just curious is, again, looking back at um, just working, like someone, like from the point of view of working in charity water. Um, what are the ways that I guess you address kind of career growth and kind of like personal development within this space? I'm curious because I feel like the nonprofit sector is so easily mission driven. I don't say that in a
Mm.
bad way, but it's like
Yeah.
you're all here to change the world.
Hmm.
But I'm also curious, like I know that people's personal kind of development is always, we're all looking out for number one. We're all looking for kind of the what's in it for me further. Like, do you guys like how do you guys address that from a cultural perspective or from a organizational
Yeah.
perspective?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things about charity water that's so interesting is we often talk about we have lower we have such anytime we release a new position on our website, we have so many people apply, and we actually have a lower acceptance rate than like a Harvard or Yale, and I don't know the
Yeah.
numbers off the top of my head, but it's an interesting figure formula. um, but for us, we have a lot of highly talented, highly driven, and highly motivated people. So you
Okay.
better be finding at times areas and paths for them to advance in their careers. Just a lot of them, they want to be in the nonprofit sector. And so,
Yep.
what does that career advancement look like for them? It looks a little different than it would maybe in the for-profit sector, but it is still, um, associates kind of moving into the next step roles, and what is ahead of, what is a director of, what does that look like, and so we are constantly trying to create paths for growth, because one, we want to hold on to our people as best as we possibly can. We want to retain our talented team, and two, they deserve it. They've kind of committed to this life of in the nonprofit space, and sometimes we can't compete from a salary standpoint. But as you talked about earlier, when we think about laying our head on the pillow at night and thinking about the contribution from that day, that's part of our compensation as well, is feeling like we were really able to make a difference in the lives of others that day. But absolutely, would be very similar to kind of what you see in the for-profit side of career development, career paths, helping them understand kind of what is this next step, what is it going to take for me to get there, and them understanding how they can grow professionally and personally and professionally, within charity water and within the nonprofit sector as a whole.
No, thank you for that. I know I've been bouncing around with all these curious questions, but I really enjoy you giving me the peek under the hood of charity water and things like that. It's been very, very insightful. For the audience, can you share ways that they can get involved if they want to contribute, donate, help out charity water? What's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah. We love we have the spring, which is about 70,000 committed monthly donors who come on to charitywater.org and give to the spring, and you can pick any amount, and you'll be a part of this incredible community of people that's bringing clean water to people all around the world. You can kind of follow and track your lifetime impact, so you can invite others to get involved, and watch your own personal impact grow, and that's an incredible way to get involved. But if you go to charitywater.org and you kind of click on the ways to get involved, there's a drop down menu there that you can look at all the different ways. But one of the great kind of entry ways to get involved, and we have an incredible community of 70,000 people that want to be a part of this, and actually in over 100 countries. That's the interesting piece of this. these 70,000 people are from over 100 countries. We have incredible partners in Africa donating to water projects in Africa. And so just really a unique group of individuals and people that are making a real difference in the world. And so, we'd love to ask you to join us and be a part in whatever way you can.
No, it's awesome. It's a great cause. We'll put that link in the show notes here, so anyone who can, please do check it out. And Ben, really appreciate you taking the time today, and really appreciate the conversation. It's been an amazing story, and kind of just like I said, a peek under the hood of how this business operates in love.
So appreciate it, Jeff. Thanks so much for having me on. And I look forward to talking again, hopefully someday soon.
Absolutely. And thank you, of course, to the listeners. Appreciate you tuning in. We are pumping out these episodes every week on time just for you. So if you like it, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, rate, all those things, tell a friend. And always going to say, please check out the book, Love is Business Strategy. It's still there. Still great. Ben, it's been awesome. Thank you so much. And we'll see everybody next week.